Good evening, and welcome to the Night Owl. And happy October, happy spooky season. This is the podcast's favorite time of year, if I do say so myself. And if you're new to this side of the Bird Brain podcast, well, this is where the things that go bump in the night have a little bit more freedom to roam. But I must warn you, content may contain adult language and scenarios that may not be suitable for all audience members, so listeners' discretion is advised. Everywhere has its stories, its legends, its history. And some stories, well, you can never forget because they become a part of the town and the people. Tonight's story is no different because even though some cities do sleep, well, the spirits never have the chance to. Lock your doors, check your windows, and get comfortable because you won't be sleeping tonight. I give you the last stop. Growing up in New York, you learn a lot and quickly. And one of the most important and necessary lessons is the train system. It was a rite of passage. Your parents taught you how to navigate the metro system. And by the age of 10, my buddies Jay, Raz, Cam, and I knew how to get around. We all lived on the same block, and our parents all knew one another, so it was just an extended family. And what was really cool is that our folks were friends since grade school and just chose to move to the same spot. Growing up, after school, we'd always hit up Central Park, but we made sure to grab snacks from our favorite bodega. And Mr. Paul, he knew us well. We actually called him Uncle Paul. We'd each get a bag of chips, a honey bun, a brownie, and a soda. But Uncle Paul always made sure to give us something extra in the bag. I love that. And as we got older, we still stopped by, but instead of him giving us something, we always gave him something extra, whether it was a new baseball card or something mint and limited. That was a beautiful thing about growing up, is we all took care of each other. New York was home, and wherever we went, it felt that way. And of course, like any other place, you had your stuff that was necessary to be aware of. But majority of growing up in the city, you felt at home. Now there's a ton of urban legends, especially when it comes to the subway system. Some stories most certainly aren't too far-fetched from the actual truth. Tunnel Tim. None of us ever forgot that story. How could we? It was too close to home. The story goes that after midnight, since the trains don't operate as frequently, the tracks change, the times change, and people change. It was still manageable to navigate, but there was this one train you didn't want to get caught on, since that might be your last ride. The S train, short for the shit out of luck train. It'd stop in the weirdest parts of the city and the places that we knew not to venture to. People talked about Tunnel Tim Tim was on his way home from a party in college. He was a little tipsy and didn't realize that someone had been following him the entire time. When the cops recovered him, or what parts were left, it was in the papers. Now, he wasn't the only one. There'd been a bunch of missing person stories. It's just that his made the news because of who his parents were. It is an unfortunate truth that some lives most certainly matter than others. But before Tim, there'd been many stories about someone feeling like someone had been following them since they stepped down into the subway, but just always out of sight, too. Yeah. When the clock struck midnight, the lights would flicker. And if you looked down the platform, you'd see someone waiting for the train who wasn't there before. And if you got on that train, he'd follow you. And he'd follow you until he no longer had to. And it was easy pickings for college kids, but we were all solid kids. None of us were into any bullshit as we got older. Raz and his girl were getting home late one night from a dinner. Raz tried to call me, and I missed it. Who the hell knows what I'd been doing? Sophomore college year. I'd never forget it. We all got a text in the middle of the night from Lisa. She was in the hospital with Raz. They escaped, unfortunately, because no one ever escapes. Raz suffered some pretty heavy injuries, broken ribs, dislocated shoulder, and blunt force trauma to the head. He fought back. Of course he did. You know, Raz was the gentle giant you never wanted to mess with. He looked out for all of us. He played no games about us. And because of that, it was a shock to the heart that something happened to him, and none of us had his back. He brushed it off, though, as he always does. As soon as I got the call, I rushed to the hospital. We all showed up around the same time, it seemed. We gathered around his room and just waited until he woke up. It sucked to see him that way, and I was kind of scared, too. Him and Lisa retold what they saw, and you can see how scared they were. I noticed the lights flickering, and it seemed like anyone that was around just disappeared, and it was just us. I tried to call a rideshare, but for some reason they all kept getting canceled. We both found that weird. Blame it on a full moon, I guess, right? He laughed about it. I couldn't be sure, but as we were running downstairs to catch the last train, I thought I saw someone at the top of the stairs peek around the corner. We were waiting on the platform, and at the far end, it looked like someone was waiting too. It felt kind of weird, so we walked a couple of platforms down, but so did they. And when the train arrived, we got on, and so did they. Whoever it was, they wore a hood. They were taller than me for sure. Mind you, Raz was 6'4", all muscle, martial arts, but was the biggest anime fan you'd meet. And he was smart as hell. When he recounted what happened, I watched his eyes water and his hands start to tremble. It made me angry as much as it hurt to see my buddy in that condition. Out of all people, him. Years passed since that night, and we all tried to just get on with life. We all kept pretty close to one another, and at least made it a yearly obligation to meet up. I got stationed in Tokyo for work, and I'd be there for an extended period of time. I heard about the legends, the local ones, the ones that kind of reached America. I'd been told about the folklore there and the stories told in their culture and their subway system. It was apparently easy to get lost in the process, and at night getting lost could be a bit of a problem. It was definitely no New York. I was getting adjusted to being out there and operating like a local. And one night I decided to go out and get more familiar with the space. I took my camera, but I left my phone. Leave it to me. It was getting late and things looked much different at night. It was getting late and things looked much different at night than they do in the day. I thought I remembered which train to get on until I didn't. I did my best to trust my gut. I remember hearing about a legend of the ghost train. If you get on, it's important you keep your eyes closed because you might see some shit you don't want to. You might also get led off the platform because someone is escorting you to your death. I didn't believe it until that night. I've forgotten all about that because I was in such a panic to get back home. It was midnight. The town I'd been staying in was starting to close up. It was like people didn't exist there after midnight. Literally, it's like they all just vanished. There was this one pub that had karaoke, and it seemed like the lingerers were there at this point. Very few, drunk, singing their hearts out to a disco ball, and anyone coherent enough to listen. When I stepped outside, it was silent. Silent enough to hear the sound of nothing. I saw a train pulling into the station, and I tried my best to pick up speed, but I had just missed it. Fuck. So I waited on the platform and waited until finally I saw a train pull in. But this one looked different than the others. It was darker. I looked as the cars passed before stopping, and it seemed like whoever was on there was sleeping with their hood down, covering their faces. I stepped on. I sat down. Nothing felt right, but I was desperate to get home. Of course, I fell asleep. But I did wake up at my stop, or so I thought. The train stopped. I opened my eyes to someone standing in front of me, pointing to the doors. It was pitch black, but they were pointing me to get off here. I got off, and I don't remember much else. I genuinely don't remember how I got home. I told my friends about it, and they told me of the legend around here. Whoever got me off that train didn't make it to their destination in the past. There was some train stop serial killer. And let's just say I'm glad I didn't miss mine. So there you have it. Stay tuned for another story to keep you up at night. If you like what you're listening to, well, let the people know. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Sleep tight.